Have you ever felt like someone was jealous of you? Like life just wasn't fair? That's exactly what happened to Joseph in the Bible. But Joseph had special faith in God, and it helped him through his troubles. Hello, children. Welcome to Catechism for Kids. I'm your host. Today's story comes from the book of Genesis, chapters 37 through 39. Once upon a time, there was a man named Jacob who had 12 sons. He loved all his boys very much. But Jacob had a favorite son, not because he loved the other ones any less. Now Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. He made an ornate robe for him. Why did his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them? They hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Now I want you to picture this. You're one of Joseph's brothers, and every time Jacob praises Joseph and gives him presents, you think to yourself, hey, if Dad loves Joseph so much, maybe he likes him better than me. Now, this didn't make Joseph feel good about himself, but it made his brothers angry. They hated the fact that their dad showed Joseph favoritism. They started resenting Joseph because of his new coat, which reminded them that they weren't their dad's favorite. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. One day the brothers went out into the fields to take care of the flocks. Then they said to each other, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him, and we'll see what comes of his dreams. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. At least this way, they thought, Jacob wouldn't know what happened to Joseph. Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, we found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe. Jacob recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. When Jacob realized that his favorite son was killed, he threw himself on the ground and cried for many days. After a while, Jacob asked his sons to leave him alone, so he could be with his pain. In the meantime, Joseph traveled with the Midianites traders that bought him to Egypt. When they arrived, Joseph was sold to a man named Potiphar, who was in charge of protecting Pharaoh's palace. Joseph did his job well, so Potiphar gave him more responsibilities. Soon, Joseph was in charge of everything in the house. Then one day, Potiphar's wife invited Joseph into her bedroom and said, you're a handsome young man and I want you to be my lover. If you do what I ask, I'll give you nice clothes and perfume. Everyone in this house will be yours. But Joseph replied, no, ma'am. My master treats me well, and I am not going to do anything wrong that will upset him. Then Potiphar's wife kept bothering Joseph day after day, but he wouldn't give in to her. Finally, she got tired of him refusing her, so she did something sneaky. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When Potiphar heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. He was falsely accused, and now he was stuck in prison. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So Joseph interpreted their dreams and told them that within 3 days, Pharaoh will restore the chief cupbearer to his position, but he will impale the chief baker on a pole, and the birds will eat away his flesh. In the next 3 days, Joseph's interpretation came true. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. After a while, Pharaoh had a strange dream that nobody could explain. So he sent for his cupbearer, who remembered Joseph, and told Pharaoh, "I remember a prisoner who interpreted my dream correctly, and he might be able to interpret your dream too." So Pharaoh sent for Joseph and brought him to the palace. When he arrived, Joseph bowed down before Pharaoh and explained that only God could reveal what Pharaoh's dream meant. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams and asked him to explain what they meant. Then Joseph told Pharaoh, "You have 7 years to gather food and store it in the land, because in the future there will be 7 years of famine, and the whole world will be affected." Pharaoh liked that Joseph solved his problem, so he appointed him to be in charge of storing food during the 7 years of plenty. Then Joseph used the food they gathered to feed people during the 7 years of famine. At the end of the famine, there was still food left, because Joseph had saved grain during the years of plenty. After a while, Jacob sent Joseph's brothers to go buy some food in Egypt. Joseph was in charge of giving them the food, and he recognized his brothers. But they didn't recognize Joseph. So they stood before him, and Joseph asked them, "What kind of food do you need?" They told him what they needed, so he sent for it and gave it to them. Then Joseph kept giving his brothers food over and over again. Each time they came, they still didn't know that Joseph was their brother. But Joseph knew who they were, and he wanted to reveal himself. So one day he said to them, "I am your brother Joseph. I am the one you sold to the Egyptians. But don't worry, I forgive you. God sent me ahead of you to save your lives and bring you to Egypt so you can live and have land. I will be your Lord, but you will be my family." So Joseph welcomed his family in Egypt, and they lived happily ever after. Once Joseph became friends with his brothers, he forgave them and told them to come and live in Egypt. Also, Joseph never forgot his dad, Jacob. He told him how he was in Egypt, and that he was in charge of saving food for the entire country. So Jacob, his sons, and all his family went to live in Egypt. That's the end of today's story. As you can see, God took Joseph from a pit to a palace. He turned Joseph's problems into blessings. Joseph had a lot of faith in God. That's why he trusted God's plan even when life was hard. Joseph trusted God's plan even when he was put into a pit, when he was sold as a slave, when he was falsely accused, and when he was in prison. But God never left him. He helped Joseph through all his troubles, and he turned his problems into blessings. My friends, we can trust God's plan too. Even if we don't understand why things happen, God is always with us. He wants the best for us, even if we make mistakes. We should try to do good in everything we do, like Joseph did. He resisted temptation when Potiphar's wife tempted him, and he trusted God to help him in the future. Today, we pray for those who have lost hope. Help them to believe in you, just like Joseph did. Thank you for watching this episode of Catechism for Kids. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our stories. We have lots of fun stuff to help you learn about the Catholic faith. I'll see you next time.